All right, welcome everyone. We got Dr. Cameron Alldredge here. Welcome, Cameron.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Yeah, so it's interesting. So a week ago, I asked my newsletter folks, do they want to know about hypnosis from the science or the woo-woo perspective? And almost unanimously, people are saying science. We want to know the science. So here we are. We got the doctor here. Now, yeah, it's interesting because you started. Well, how did you start with hypnosis? It was like stage or something before that.
Exactly right. Yeah, I started in my teenage years. So as an adolescent, really got into it. And as I got into college, like my freshman year of college, it evolved to more stage and entertaining with hypnosis. And I really liked it as a tool. I saw it as a powerful technique. And so I went and got a PhD in clinical psychology, became a clinical psychologist, and now I do more. Uh, yeah, I've gone away from entertaining with it, and I do more research and clinical work with it.
So it's interesting. So when you were in college doing the stage hypnosis, what were you studying then?
Yeah, I was getting my bachelor's degree in psychology.
Okay, so you always kind of had like an interest of the mind.
That's right. Yes, sir.
Awesome, cool. And then, so how does it? We could get into the science in just a second. I'm just wondering, how does it differ from traditional talk therapy versus hypnosis?
That's a great question. So if I'm understanding correctly, it's like in a therapeutic context, how does like a hypnotherapy session differ from, if somebody was doing like cognitive behavioral therapy? Is that right?
Right.
It's, yeah, for me, it seems like it kicks therapy into high gear where it makes the change that people are going in for, that they're intending to make, that change seem a lot more real and tangible. It makes it more clear. It seems to speed up a lot of positive changes that people are trying to make. And it honestly makes therapy a lot more enjoyable, I think, because hypnosis for most people is a very pleasurable experience. And it can be a very profound experience for a lot of people, which you can't get when you're talking about analyzing your thoughts for 50 minutes. So
Right.
it just has a lot of good advantages.
And where did you go for your PhD?
Yeah, so my PhD, that was at BYU in Utah.
Sweet.
Yeah.
And okay, so let's talk about the science. So
Okay.
whether stage hypnosis, right? Like that's how I got my start, was stage and street work and getting people's fingers stuck together or forgetting their name. I mean, to me, that was the biggest thing. Like, how does a person forget their name? So what's going on in the brain for that to happen?
Yeah. So the thing about hypnosis is that it really is about creating creating a real experience that
Mm,
people have. So obviously there's nothing that we're doing to a person that's actually causing them to really forget their name. They're actually
mm.
just experiencing in perfect sense with 100% reality what it would be like to forget their name. And so to them, it's a very real experience, even though us as the outsiders, we can be like, well, you know, how can you forget your name? It's so
Right.
obvious. And so it really is just this, it's an immersive experience that people have. And so when you're able to give these hypnotic suggestions, that kind of creates and gives some scaffolding to a very real experience for them.
And I'm wondering, almost like you mentioned scaffolding, and I'm picturing like you go up in layers. So you start with, okay, I feel relaxed, might be the first layer. And that's a real experience. You really feel relaxed. And the next experience is, oh, my anxiety is now lower. That's another real experience. So does it change something in the brain or does it activate certain parts?
Definitely. So there's been a lot of neuroimaging studies that have looked at what parts, or I guess circuits of the brain,
Mhm.
are more or less active. I know that a lot of the folks like to talk about different brain waves, which is helpful and all, but to me, what seems to be more interesting is different areas and networks of the brain, like the default mode network, as an example. That is really active and plays a crucial role in like our self-monitoring. So our ability to be aware and perceive ourselves and kind of check in with ourselves. That seems to decrease in hypnotic states. And so you have this idea that I'm not, focused so much on, you know, kind of replaying or rehashing what I'm experiencing, but I'm just having this very raw, real experience. That's one example. But there's like others like the salience network and different networks of the brain that are going to be more or less active.
Interesting. And is it possible for a person to like tap into this themselves versus working with a provider like yourself?
100%. And in fact, I think that us as providers, we're really just kind of teachers or coaches in a way of like people being able to use their own abilities to access these states.
Hmm. Interesting.
Yeah.
And when they access these states, and I hear the term neuroplasticity kicked around. How real is that? Like, are we changing actual chemistry or changing actual neural networks in our brain?
Yeah, I think a good way to think about it is the brain loves well-worn paths and neural paths and neural circuitry. And so when we have a pattern of behavior or a pattern of thought that's just been one way for so long, it kind of becomes that, automatic way of thinking and doing things.
Mm.
Hypnosis, it opens it up to where these alternative paths can be explored and like almost reified into this real experience. And so it's almost like retraining the brain of like, okay, I know you've done this for so long, XYZ. Here's what it would be like to try something else. And so it kind of just opens up those potentials of like doing things differently than usual.
Interesting. And now you're doing research on this stuff, right?
That's right. Yeah, I'm at Baylor University, so I'm paid to do this full time and read about hypnosis, write about
Yeah.
it, do it all day, every day. So it's the best gig.
That's pretty sweet. And what's some of the research that you've done?
Yes. So there's one that we just published in JAMA. It's a Journal of American Medical Association. That we're really excited about is a 7-year long study.
Oh,
But
wow.
it was brutal. I wasn't there all 7 years, but the lab was, and so it looked at using clinical hypnosis to treat postmenopausal hot flashes,
Mm.
and we found that it worked phenomenally well for people. And so it was kind of cool to see with such a large data set and then like such a rigorous research study across multiple sites, not just our laboratory doing it, but other universities also running their own version of it, seeing that it worked really well in reducing such a problematic symptom, or I guess byproduct of the menopausal transition. So
That's fascinating to me. So about the study. So how many participants were in it?
yeah, there were over, I mean, I should know these numbers off the top of my head. I co-authored the paper, but I know that we had over, I think it was like around 250
Yeah.
participants in this. Yeah.
And how was the study set up?
So it's interesting because we already knew that hypnosis could work really well for hot flashes. We wanted to know if we just give people like audio sessions of hypnosis to listen to on their own at home, that are just kind of standardized for everyone, how well does that work? Because if we can demonstrate that it works well, then that suddenly opens up access to this effective hypnotic treatment to so many more people because they don't need one-on-one, go to the therapist's office, sit down and do it. They can access it from their phone, which is really exciting. And so they would get these audio sessions
Mhm.
across 5 weeks of treatment. And then we'd measure, how much their hot flashes are changing as they go through. And then we would get them again like 12 weeks later as a follow-up to see how long or how well the effects have been maintained.
That's fascinating that you did it through an audio tape versus because in my mind, and we'll talk about that in a moment, this study that I would love to see one day.
Mhm.
So the audio tapes, did you have a control group that listened to like just what? Like
We did have a controlled group. and they listened to white noise.
Just white noise.
Just white noise. Yep.
Nice.
Yep. Nothing therapeutic about it. But yeah, we had like but it was like a sham hypnosis condition. What a lot of researchers are doing is they'll have a white noise condition
Mhm.
and they'll tell people that like you might be listening to white noise, but there's actually subliminal hypnotic
Mm.
passages in it because it kind of will wash out any expectancy effects of like people expecting
Right.
hypnosis to, do XYZ for them. So
Right. So that's interesting because it kind of talks about the placebo versus
exactly right.
the actual hypnotic language. Interesting. So I'm imagining people that are listening or going to be watching this, they're going to be like, well, how do I get those audios?
Yeah.
I have hot flashes. Help me reduce them.
Yes, there is a way. Our lab has teamed up with a great app development company based in Australia called Mindset Health. And they produce a number of hypnosis apps with some of the top researchers in the world. So our laboratory, we helped with the hot flash one, which is called Evia. And then we also contributed to the smoking cessation one called Finito. And they have a family of hypnosis apps. So if somebody's interested, yeah, they can download that app and it's pretty much what people experienced in our study right there in the app.
That's cool. And what was the results of the study? Like, what was the percentage?
Yeah, we when we compare the two, hypnosis definitely had a significant advantage. It was interesting because people who listened to just the white noise also saw somewhat of a decrease in their hot flashes over the course of the study. But if women were randomized into our hypnosis treatment condition, the effects were just way more pronounced, significantly um, more improvement there, and then they seemed to last longer too. So it was just all around seemed to be a better experience for people.
And for the smoking cessation,
Hmm.
have you got any data on that? Listening to the audios, what's the success rate on that?
Yes. So we've done a couple of studies. One was just a survey of app users to see, did you achieve your goal and how was it? So we did a kind of a more informal study there. Well, it was published in an academic journal, but I should say an informal survey. And we found that more than 50% of app users reported that they met their smoking smoking cessation goal. And then that actually evolved and we did a randomized trial of it. Actually, it was one of the graduate students' dissertation projects. She just finished data collection a little bit ago and is in like the analysis phase. So we don't quite know yet, but it's on its way. So
Yeah, I'm curious. And then what's the how long? So you got 50% says it was effective, and then is it effective a year later, 2 years later?
right. Yeah. Some kind of longitudinal study is definitely needed. And I know that some people listening might be like, well, 50%, like half and half, that's not that good. But if you compare it to other
Right.
other approaches, it's
Right.
way better. So
Yeah, even like the nicotine patches. Do you know the data on that? Like how successful are those?
not off the top of my head, but I know it's not a majority of people. So
Right. Yeah. Interesting. So the question then, so they get these audios, reduce hot flashes, then what's the need to see us in person?
it's a good question. And that's kind of the argument is hypnosis is such a powerful tool. And I think a lot of hypnosis practitioners like to conflate the effects to being something that they're able to produce because of, their power and skill and ability or whatever. But it's really so much more of it resides with the individual patients than with any
Mm.
one practitioner. So with that, it really just makes this this treatment way more accessible to people. And if it works, then we want to make it widely accessible to people who can benefit from it. And so I don't think it completely removes the need for any hypnotherapists or practitioners. It actually gets people more excited and aware of it so that the people who might actually come and pay to meet with somebody one-on-one will be even more prone to do so.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I'm letting that sit in for a minute. I had a question and it like escaped, just poof.
It's okay. I can tell you what we're working on right now, which is
Yeah, that'd be great.
the study that is my baby right now that I'm
Yeah.
taking the lead on is in the world of psychotherapy right now. Psychedelic assisted therapy is like exploding. Like people are saying it as just like the future of therapy, and
Yes.
tons of research is getting published on it every week. And so I was looking through all this research and a lot of like the imaging studies and people's experiences. And I was thinking like, there's a lot of overlap between these altered states that people experience under the influence of psychedelics that seem to overlap with hypnotic experiences. And so we ran a pilot study to see, can we use just hypnosis, no psychedelics drugs, just hypnosis to facilitate a mystical or a psychedelic-like experience.
Yes. Yes.
And sure enough, it worked phenomenally well. It worked so well to the point that we had a funding organization give us $500,000 to do a 2-year long study to see, to like really dive into this of like using non-drug means to induce these peak mystical, like peak spiritual
Right.
experiences for
Right.
people and how they affect people. So that is what I'm doing right. Like that's what I was working on this morning before I jumped in this call, was finishing up some like IRB nonsense well, not nonsense. We love the IRB, but just some stuff
Yeah.
that I had to deal with the IRB here. And so that's on the forefront of my mind right now. So it's a
Yeah.
really fun study.
That does sound fun. It brings up two thoughts in my mind. The first is Ram Dass. He was a psychology teacher in Harvard, and he discovered LSD. He's like, this is some cool stuff. And he went to India to his guru with a vial of LSD. And he's like, all right, guru, try this on. And the guru's like, glug, 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 no difference. Glug, 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 no difference. Because he's like so in tune with the state that the LSD was negated.
Yeah, fascinating.
And the other thing I'm thinking of too is 2011 I had a cardiac arrest and I went into this place. I was out and it was a mystical place for me. It was where I was floating nowhere and everywhere at the same time. Like no stress, perfect peace, but I felt connected to all these realities, all these people. And then so when I got revived, I was like, oh man, I gotta go back there, but I don't want to die to get there. And so that's where I came into hypnosis. I started chasing that through becoming a shaman, doing Reiki, doing different drugs and psychedelics, like you mentioned. And it's like, well, first off, I'm a government worker, so I gotta watch myself. So how do I get there without the drugs? Hypnosis. And yeah, just from a personal anecdotal story, yeah, absolutely. I get to the same place that I got with the drugs through hypnosis. It's great and no side effects of the drugs.
100. Yeah, and that's one thing I love about it is like the studies that are using, for example, psilocybin and things. They're in that. I mean, the participants are in that for up to 8 hours sometimes. That's just
Mhm.
so many logistical issues there with that. Whereas for our study and the experience that we are facilitating, we can turn it on and off instantaneously, and or I guess shut it off in an instant if we needed to. And so it's really has an advantage that way.
And I guess that's the next question is what's the point? Why go to these mystical places? Just for fun, just for relaxation? Or what do we achieve by going to those places?
Yeah, that's kind of one of the big debates in the psychedelic assisted therapy world right now is these impressive benefits that we're seeing in the research. Is it because of like the chemical compounds of the drug itself, or is it the experience that people have while on the drug? Is that experience what leads to these benefits? And so I think the rationale behind like why we would even do it is because it can lead to meaningful change. It can lead to people wanting to be better or to have a different perspective on things. And for some people who were maybe suicidal, it makes them want to
Mhm.
live life more. Like there's so many different applications that are being examined. And so the idea, I guess the argument is that experience, that profound, meaningful experience can be life-changing for people.
And that brings up a good point too, because I know some studies. I work with the VA, but we're right here next to Yale too, and they're doing some pretty cool studies with the psychedelics. And it's one thing for a person to do it on their own, take the psychedelic, and then they can have a bad, what they call a bad trip, a bad experience, because they're not guided. So when it's paired with a practitioner like yourself who can guide them through the experience, it seems like that's where the meaningful change comes from.
Yeah, and I know there's mixed opinions on how much guiding somebody will, like a practitioner will do. Like sometimes it's just like, no, you can only just sit and support them. And then other people are like, well, maybe it'd be good to like actually guide the experience so they're not just, having
Mhm.
random you know, tripping randomly on
Right.
like weird stuff. And so that's something that I think is with more research in the field is going to start to become more clear, but I'm curious to see which way it goes.
Do you have an inclination or any initial data that you've seen that you?
Yeah, I think that's one thing we're interested in is pairing hypnosis with psychedelics.
Yeah.
Right now, we're just doing it completely without any psychedelics, but that is a question in our mind of like, if we can if we can help people achieve such powerful, meaningful experiences without any kind of mind altering substance, what would happen if we pair the two? So
Hmm.
it's a big research question right now, one that I hope to work on someday, but I don't really.
Yeah. And then how do you know that it's the same experience? Like, are you measuring it through an MRI or what are you doing to see?
It's a great question. We are measuring it using the same measures that they use in the psychedelic research.
Hmm.
So,
Which are like what?
yeah, the main ones that we're interested in because for the psychedelic assisted therapy, a lot of them are measuring what they call the mystical experience itself. And so something that they'll commonly use is called the Mystical Experience Questionnaire 30 or the MEQ 30. Of
Of
course,
course, they have a form to quantify a mystical experience.
they sure do.
Because, like, when I died and I went into that mystical experience, it can't be described. Like, the Bible even refers to it as peace beyond understanding, peace beyond words. So, how do you measure a mystical experience?
I mean, it's funny you even mention that because part of the MEQ 30 is getting at whether the experience was ineffable or indescribable for them. Like, how indescribable was your experience? Great. Now let's try to describe it. So there's kind of
Yeah.
four main categories that at least the MEQ 30 looks at, which is um, transcendence of time and space.
Mhm.
So time and space both cease to exist. There's a sense of positive mood. That is one. There's a sense of ineffability, so a difficulty describing your experience. And then the last one is kind of this catch-all, which is like the mystical, which, based on what you've said, is really focused on like unity and connection,
Mm.
the universe, basically, and just kind of like this transcendent reality is how that's described. So those
Fast.
are like the four kind of domains of that measure that we're looking at.
And you've probably experienced that being a stage hypnotist. People come off the stage and be like, oh, yeah, I experienced all four of these things. Like, I thought I was only out there for a couple minutes. I feel so much better. I went to this other
Exactly.
place.
Well, I mean, you're hitting such an important point. That's why even hypothesize that hypnosis might be a good vehicle for these types of experiences because so much of what people experience during a mystical experience is just kind of automatically baked into a hypnotic experience. So there's
Yeah.
got to be some overlap there of like whatever mental state or state of consciousness these folks are tapping into has got to have some similarities across the two modalities. So
And where does that live in the brain?
I think it doesn't live in the brain.
Yes. Say more. Say
So
more.
I think the brain is usually just kind of a conduit for whatever our, greater consciousness or maybe spiritual identity might be. And so I think it's actually a process of kind of getting out of our conscious, rational thinking mind into our more experiential and subconscious mind.
And where does that live?
That I think probably lives on more of a spiritual realm of existence. I don't know much beyond that,
Yeah, yeah.
especially because the science doesn't even get close to anything over there. But I think what's cool is that, especially with a lot of these new research developments in psychedelics, we're starting to touch more of that spiritual aspect that I think is present. So it's kind of
Yeah.
biding time.
Yeah. That's interesting. And I wonder if there's like if you looked at it under an MRI or some kind of imaging, are there parts of the brain that light up when it connects to this consciousness?
Yeah, so I know that there's a study that I like that did neuroimaging across people who were taking LSD and psilocybin, a group of people who were meditating, and then a group of people who were experiencing hypnosis.
Mm,
And they found some similarities, especially between like the hypnosis group and the psychedelics group in the like the visual stimulant, like the visual parts of the brain, like this visual experience that people were having. Maybe even hallucinatory, where it's like I'm seeing things that aren't actually there, but they seem like they're there to me. So that was one of the overlaps I remember standing out to me. But yeah, that's an interesting study to see, like, okay, in what areas do these different modalities do they overlap, and what areas are they different? So
and what's interesting in that too is this spiritual whatever that we want to describe it, that perhaps it lights up in different areas for different people because it's not in the brain.
right. Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah, exactly. And I mean, even with that, like you get into some of the more chemical and neurological elements of spirituality, you get into DMT, which is
Mm,
coined as the spirit molecule.
mm,
And so during those spiritual experiences, there's it's hypothesized that there's this greater production of endogenous DMT in the
mm.
brain. So that I know there are some good research teams looking closely at that, which is exciting.
Is there like in hypnosis, do we see more DMT released?
That I really think that that's my hypothesis, but I don't know that there's been any formal research
Right.
about that. So be a
Your next
dissertation.
baby. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. And then speaking of research, so I work at the in the VA, I work with blind veterans, and there's a certain type of blindness that's in the brain. So their eyes work, the optical nerve is intact, but either through past trauma or a TBI, a traumatic brain injury, their brain says, I can't see anymore. So we've seen some studies where through cognitive behavior therapy, they get some sight back, challenging those thoughts from the top down. My hypothesis is there some validity to using hypnosis to treat functional issues such as functional blindness?
I think absolutely, yeah. That could get really at the source of the problem, I think probably a lot quicker. And whatever it is that's blocking that functional ability, I think could very well be addressed with hypnosis. Yeah.
Yeah. Even like I'm looking at it used to be called multiple personality disorder. Now I think it's called what, DID?
Yeah, dissociative identity disorder.
Right. And then are there some where like different alters or different states they have different blood work? Like I saw like one could have diabetes and the other not because it regulates the hormones and the cascade of the hormones, like how much insulin is produced. Some have better vision than others. Oh,
That's that's fascinating and wild to me. I would love to see it, and it doesn't surprise me either because for some people that's like such a salient experience for them. So yeah, it could be.
like in hypnosis, like you see sometimes like for instance, like what's that state where they put him like out, not Elman, the other one, where it's like
Isdale.
Esdale, right, where they're just numb, where you see people doing brain surgery, and they're like, okay, hypnotize, no drugs. Okay, now we're going to cut into your skull and drill, and the other person's just like la la la, and they've just been hypnotized, right? And then, or on the other hand, you have someone that's hypnotized, and you say, okay, now I'm inserting a needle, and you see the reaction on their skin.
Right.
So it's like,
It's that mind-body connection.
right, fascinating. Fascinating. All right. So in a moment, yeah, I would love to give to listeners here a little taste of some hypnosis from you, if you don't mind. But is there anything that you want to share before we get to that part?
No, I think this is a great kind of precursory way of hopefully getting people interested in the science. I will actually mention, um, come back over here for folks who are interested. So I did recently publish this book. It's
Yeah.
called Hypnosis and Hypnotherapy: What You Need to Know. Co-authored it with my mentor, Gary Elkins. And the reason I like this book is because it's all science based. So we've got the references at the end of each chapter, but it's written for everyday readers. It's not like a scientific publication, even though it's based in the science. So it was
Yeah.
it was our hope to make the science of hypnosis and hypnotherapy a little more accessible to folks. So that's
I'm glad you brought that up because I got the book before I even met you. We crossed paths on TikTok, but
yes.
before I even met you, I grabbed the book off of Kindle Unlimited. I thought, oh man, this is good stuff. I just now made the connection between you and the book. But
Okay.
yeah, so we'll put the link to the book in the description of this podcast, along with a link to your article that you produced in JAMA,
Yep.
which is pretty badass. Yeah.
Good way to describe it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Cool.
can send you some other resources for folks to
Yeah.
know this.
Yeah. We'll put the links in there. That'll be great. All right. So without further ado, everyone just has a little if anyone's watching, well, hopefully you're not watching this and driving, but if you're listening, maybe not drive and listen.
Yeah. Driving or operating any machinery, anything like that. Ensure that you're in a place where you can comfortably and safely listen to what we're about to go through, and you can be involved in it as much or as little as you'd like. But with your eyes open, I want you to find a place either on a wall or a ceiling that you can see, and just start to focus on that one spot. Noticing that as you focus on that spot, everything else is just going to kind of fade into the background, just becoming more relaxing, and finding that the deeper you allow yourself to relax, the more that everything else just fades away from that spot. Laser focus right on that spot, noticing how nice that feels. And whenever it feels good for you, you can slowly let your eyelids close, just softly, naturally down. Good. And as your eyes close, just allowing that warm, peaceful sensation of deep, tranquil relaxation flow from the top of your head down to the tips of your toes. Just allowing every part of your body to feel completely limp, loose, and relaxed. You're doing fantastic. Just letting go. Feeling open, comfortable, at ease, and relaxed. Just finding that the more you allow yourself to relax, the better you feel. And the better you feel, the more you are able to relax. It's a wonderful relationship back and forth. Just letting go, noticing that every word I say just helps you to deepen that relaxation to a comfortable, wonderful place. You're doing great. In a moment, I'll give you some basic suggestions and instructions to have an experience of seeing yourself accomplishing goals that you have, seeing yourself living a life that you want to live. Maybe that's changes in your job, changes in your relationships, changes in how you view or interact with yourself. begin to see yourself maybe 5 or 6 months into the future, seeing that how you are and the life that you live is fundamentally different than how it is right now. And you can begin to see those changes clearly and seeing what is different. You can notice what about you makes your life better? What about you makes you like yourself more? You can even see how this translates into how you're able to interact with other people and what you're able to accomplish. Just bring that into the forefront of your mind, and as you are experiencing that, I want you to step into it as if you're not observing it anymore, but you're actually experiencing it firsthand. You are becoming that experience. You are becoming that version of you. And you can begin to notice how you think differently, what motivations you have, which might be new or different. You can see and experience how you behave and act differently. Just take a moment to really soak it in, really absorb yourself in this new and exciting experience. Realizing that this is possible, but not only possible, this is inevitable. And really feeling that right now. You can take this experience with you even in the awake state. It can be something like an anchor in your life as you move toward this new way of thinking, behaving, and relating. It can be a guide or a roadmap for you as you move into that new way of living. In just a moment, I will count from 1 up to 5. When I reach the number 5, you'll return to regular, normal waking consciousness, feeling refreshed and rejuvenated, feeling like you woke up from a 2-hour nap and a 1-hour back massage, just feeling incredible from head to toe, refreshed and energized, ready for whatever else you need to do today. We'll start with the number 1, becoming more aware of your body. 2, even more aware of your body. 3, eyes are starting to open. 4, eyes are opening, big breath, and 5, completely wide awake, feeling refreshed and rejuvenated.
Awesome. That's cool. I love the back massage thing at the end too. That was good. Yeah, 2 hours of sleep and a back massage. Let's do it.
Yeah, I'm ready for the day.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Doctor. I appreciate it. And again, for everyone, we're dropping those links down below where you can read the book, read the science, and ride the wave.
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
Yes.